Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight, we're talking about crime, violence, and punishment in Prince George's County. We have a sit down with the county's interim state's attorney, Tara Jackson. Prince George's, like many jurisdictions across the DMV, is seeing a decline in homicides and several other major crimes. At the same time, domestic violence cases continue to rise, creating a deep concern for families. We'll dig into what's working, what's not, and how the state's attorney's office is responding. State's Attorney Tara Jackson, thank you so much for joining the conversation again.
Thank you for having me, Harold.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. Let me first start off with some of the recent headlines. As you are aware, there was a deadly shooting at the Ebony Inn on Monday night in Fairmont Heights. I want to ask you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this case, no charges have been filed as of yet, and this is now in the hands of your investigators. Is that correct?
My understanding is it's still with the county police department, but of course they would be collaborating with our office where necessary.
They have not filed charges as of yet. In that collaboration, what is the criteria that your office would use to determine whether or not charges would be filed? The police often are able to, file charges when something appears to be kind of black and white, open and shut. Obviously, this case is not that.
Well, at this stage in the game, if there is probable cause, then charges are appropriate. Probable cause to believe that some sort of crime was committed. In this case, a homicide, let's say, was committed. If there is that, then the charges would be authorized.
Okay. How long do you suspect an investigation like this could possibly take?
I really don't want to speculate. Investigations can vary. In the case of MGM, the shooting that occurred at MGM not too long ago, there were charges that were brought the very next day. In fact, I think that the very next morning. But all cases are different. So I would like to. I really don't want to speculate. I don't think that's a good idea. So it varies. It varies. But I can tell you that our police department works very hard to at least move us through the initial stage.
You mentioned the MGM shooting. It was actually 1 week ago today, and this, came at a time when the county is seeing a significant drop in violent crime across the board. When you talk about prosecuting something like this, and this may very well be more of a police question than a prosecution question, but not only in Prince George's, but even in the District of Columbia, there has been a significant decline in crime. Two different jurisdictions right next door to each other. But, from your perspective, to what do you attribute that?
Well, let me say this first, Harold. We are certainly pleased about the decline in crime year over year, but we're not satisfied. So we are going to continue to work hard to make sure that next year we see an additional decline. As to what I attribute that to, I believe there's a decline in crime nationwide. So we're not different, as I understand it, from many jurisdictions around the country. But locally, what I would say is that there has been collaboration, really, among all of the law enforcement partners, my law enforcement partners. And that collaboration didn't just start over the last several months, but certainly it continues. with the police department, the county police department, the municipal police departments, and we have quite a few in Prince George's County, as well as the office of the sheriff, the county executive's office, and of course the county police department. In fact, this morning I was just at a public safety meeting with all of those persons, so that we can just get together. We get together on a regular basis around the table to discuss issues of concern to the county. So I would say there are multiple factors, but certainly there is an effort on the part of local law enforcement to do whatever we can to continue to drive crime down.
Can you give me more detail when you say collaboration? I hear that term a lot. I know the public hears that term, quite a bit. I'm not sure the bad guys can define collaboration. So what does that mean exactly?
Well, it means really collaboration. Let me give an example. So with our office and whomever the charging agency is, or whichever charging agency is involved. So whether it's the county police or the municipal police department, if there is a crime committed, it is not unusual. In fact, it regularly occurs. The county police will consult our office as to how they should move forward. They would consult our office about legal issues, whether search warrants should be issued, whether they should apply for search warrants with the court. So there is that ongoing dialogue that's occurring, especially in the case of a homicide, between a homicide investigator and the state's attorney, the assistant state's attorney, who's assigned to that case from the very beginning. So from the moment there is a homicide that occurs, a killing that occurs in the county, we assign a prosecutor. And the prosecutor and the lead detective would work together from the very beginning to, number one, make sure that charges are issued. And then after that point, after charges are issued, if it's appropriate, then we would indict. And oftentimes there is continued investigation after charges are issued to make sure that there's enough to indict. We would indict, and then we would take it to trial. And of course, in a trial, it's necessary that we have the lead investigators, the police officers that were involved in bringing the case initially. They need to be with us throughout the trial. So that's just an example of the collaboration that occurs, frankly, on a daily basis, and not just with homicides, but with robberies, with assaults. We couldn't do this without each other.
So help me be clear about this. Certainly, that is what happens after a crime is committed. But when you're driving numbers down, that suggests that fewer crimes are being committed. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about what role you may be playing in prevention instead of the prosecution.
Sure. I think I do. And I just gave one example of collaboration. There are many, but it is not unusual for me to be in the community with the office of the sheriff talking about domestic violence. It's not unusual for me to be in the community with the office, with the Prince George's County Police Department or our municipal partners talking about financial crimes. In fact, I was just this morning talking about financial crimes to a group of seniors. And I see that as crime prevention, because in the case of financial crimes, what we're trying to do is educate the public, right? We're trying to say to the public, look, these are the types of scams that you may see. And there are a whole host of scams that are occurring across really our nation. But these are the types of scams that you may see. And we are together partnering to warn the public, to educate the public so that we're able to drive crime down.
Okay. And if I may later, I do, if you can, share a little more detail about financial crimes. I do believe that not only this time of the year, but any time of the year, it's important that you have an opportunity to share some of the details to our audience, because a lot of people, don't know, not just the seniors, but even, those of us who have not gotten to that age yet, certainly. I did want to also ask about talking about holding people accountable. You've spoken about wanting the justice system to do that, and talking about a path to redemption. How do you balance aggressive prosecution, particularly when we're talking about violent or repeat offenders, with rehabilitative or restorative justice efforts? And let me just add that for some members of the public, when we're talking about extremely violent crimes, they, as you know, they don't have a whole lot of tolerance for second chances for people who kill people.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there that you said, but let me start by saying this. I believe in youth accountability as well as adult accountability, but you mentioned our young people. The vast majority of our young people in the county are doing the right thing. They're going to school, they're being productive, right? And in our office, we want to make sure that we do whatever possible to support the positive activities and of our young people. However, there are young people, teenagers primarily, who are choosing to regularly violate the laws and unfortunately commit violent crimes as well as nonviolent crimes. So when I think about our young people, I think about it really in two ways. I think about accountability and I think about opportunity. So yes, I believe that we have got to hold young people accountable really at every stage of the process. So if they enter into the criminal justice system at every stage of the process. And what that means is that we will look at the circumstances of that case. If the case comes to the attention of our office, we'll look at the circumstances of that case and hold them accountable based on those circumstances. So a simple assault in a school is very different than a homicide, right? And so there'll be different levels of accountability. The juvenile system is all about rehabilitation. We want to, where we can, rehabilitate our young people. We want them to be constructive members of our community. And so we're going to do that. But I believe that rehabilitation, you can't have rehabilitation without accountability, really on any level. So any diversion program that we recommend for our young people, it has to have some sort of level of accountability included in that program, some sort of recognition that your actions have consequences. I say it all the time. I teach my son, my 12-year-old son, that actions have consequences, right? I discipline him because I love him. And I think that if we ignore discipline of our young people, if we ignore consequences and we try to give young people a pass, then that's only going to hurt them in the long run. So that's really the accountability side. And let me be clear about this. For our young people who are choosing to commit violent crimes and victimize their neighbors, people that they know in this community, people that, because oftentimes it's people they know, people that they don't know, then we're going to hold them accountable. And if it's a violent crime, then the accountability is going to be at that same level. It's going to be significant. But if it's a nonviolent crime, then we're going to try and do whatever we can to divert the young person from the juvenile justice system. And at the same time, I want our office to give opportunities where we can. So hopefully in the beginning of the year, Harold, will be kicking off a truancy initiative where we are partnering with the school system, with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, with nonprofits around our community to address truancy, chronic absenteeism in our county. And when I say address it, I don't mean lock up kids because they're chronically absent from school. What I mean is try and provide wraparound services to both the child and the parents, right, or the grandparents, whomever it is that is responsible for that child, so that we can get them back in school. Because we know that chronic absenteeism leads to juvenile delinquency. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And juvenile delinquency leads to, unfortunately, adult crime. So we in the state's attorney's office really want to be on the front end, providing opportunities to make sure that child has the resources he needs, and frankly, or she needs, and the desire, right? The motivation to be in school.
So hold that point because I have more to ask about that. The financial crimes. Also, I want to ask you about one of the more recent public meetings that you have. Lots to talk to you about. So please hang on. We're going to continue on the other side. The Original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is coming up next on WHUR-FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation with Prince George's County State's Attorney Tara Jackson. We're talking about crime, violence, punishment, etc. Before the break, you were talking about second chances for young people, and the thing that strikes me about what you said, and this is, I'm showing my age now. You remember there was a time when there was a Scared Straight program that was on television, and the like. And I know that you have a lot of community forums and the like. Have you had an opportunity to have these community forums with young people only? And when I say only, or they are the majority of people that were in the audience. I'm sure the jury is out on whether or not this quote unquote Scared Straight thing had any lasting effect. But I was just thinking that perhaps if the county chief prosecutor were in a room with a whole lot of young people, and just to make it plain, hey, look, you commit a crime, you get locked up, buddy.
Right. We have met with young people, but not as much as I would like to. So at the top of the year, we're certainly going to be planning more events in collaboration, hopefully with the school system. We've met with the school system already to figure out a structured way to meet with our young people. And certainly I've talked to many members, municipal leaders who want me to work with them to address children in the schools. But our courts has a great program where they bring young people into the courts on a regular basis to not only educate, but make them aware of what goes on in the criminal justice system. And I've had an opportunity to address those young people, but there are never too many opportunities. And I definitely want to get out there more than I've been out there.
What would you, or what
speaking to young people specifically? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was going to say, in those instances, and based on what you hope to plan going forward, what have you, or what would you tell them? Because I think sometimes parents, even grandparents, need assistance in getting a message out to their children or grandchildren about the realities of breaking the law.
I think that it depends on the group of young people. I think messages have to be tailored depending on.
I mean, age appropriate. Certainly.
Yes. I spoke with a group of young people at Jack and Jill group, and that are all college bound, and that there was a certain message there, right? It was very interesting conversation actually, and we talked quite a bit about the different dynamics in the law enforcement community.
So what did you tell them?
Well, for that group, we talked actually a lot about the fairness of the judicial system. They had a lot of questions about fairness based on what they've seen around the country, frankly. Interestingly, we talked about one young person asked the question why this was a young Black male and said, I don't know why I would ever want to be a prosecutor, right? And so that was a good conversation because I think that oftentimes we have difficulty attracting Black men, frankly, to decide to become prosecutors. So there are all sorts of conversations that I've had with young people, but I guess to your point, if it is a group that I think is at risk, then it would be, I wouldn't coddle them. It would be really a message, hopefully, that gives hope, that that uplifts them, that affirms who they are, and then at the same time says to them, there are always going to be consequences to your actions. And you've got to think about who you hang out with, where you hang out. Unfortunately, I've seen too many young people get in trouble because they were hanging out with somebody else who wanted to do something that was against the law. And, there they are driving the car, or making the phone call to dispose of the evidence or whatever it is. And now they're facing jail time. So I tend to want to talk to young people about their acquaintances and the places that they choose to hang out in. And then, like I said, your actions have consequences, and you cannot expect to take certain actions and not not also experience the consequences.
You hosted a public forum shortly in the day or so after the MGM shooting. What did you hear in that public forum? Was there anything that you didn't know? Did you learn anything specifically from the people who showed up? I think some people may be surprised that it was not standing room only, considering the outcry that we've seen for months and years from the public about fixing, the public safety issues in the county.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it. I was disappointed at the turnout, frankly, because we want to be in. I talked about collaboration earlier among law enforcement partners, but we have to collaborate with the community as well. We have to understand the issues that they're facing in their particular community. And so it's important for me to hear from members all across this county, right, from Laurel to Akakeek, so that we understand, we think we know, right, what crimes are impacting them, and how we should address crime, and how we frankly should address diversion programs and other prevention methods, but maybe we don't. So it's important for me to hear from the community. It's important for all of our law enforcement members to hear from the community. So with that said, I would just encourage people wherever possible. I know it's the holiday season, but wherever possible, if any member of public safety is reaching out in the community, it's because we want to hear from you. And we want to have a conversation with you. We don't want to talk at you, but we want to have a dialogue. As it relates to that particular meeting, there wasn't necessarily anything that I heard that I haven't heard before. The few that were there, obviously concerned about the incident that had just occurred at the MGM. And then we had the fire department there as well. So there were some questions as it relates to fire safety. The Office of the Sheriff spent quite a bit of time talking about domestic violence and their new collaboration with the police department around domestic violence. So there were a variety of questions. There were some questions around immigration and how local law enforcement interacts with federal law enforcement, or if we interact with federal law enforcement. So there were a variety of questions, but nothing that I hadn't heard before.
So since you brought up the whole immigration thing, when I don't think a lot of people truly understand, but are paying attention, certainly when they hear about these issues in the news, if someone who is in the United States, and specifically if they're in Prince George's County, and they are undocumented and they commit a crime, what happens to them? Because there are, I'm sure there are, we know that there are some cases like that right now that are moving through your office. So what happens? Do you get to prosecute that person before they move to the federal level for deportation under the current administration, or does it happen in the reverse? Kind of walk us through that.
Yes, so we don't prosecute, as you know, but just for clarification, we're not prosecuting any crimes as it relates to your status in the country.
Right.
That is not of our concern. But we are concerned about the crime that occurs in Prince George's County. So my experience since June has been that we at least have been able to charge persons notwithstanding their status, and we expect to prosecute them. So I'm not aware of the federal government taking anybody from us so that we have the inability to prosecute.
So,
and that would be my position. Let me hold the person accountable in Prince George's County.
So, and I don't know whether or not you may be able to answer this, but this is, again, one of those things that I think a lot of people are curious. If someone who is here illegally and they commit a crime in Prince George's County, you prosecute them, and then they are, of course, sentenced to prison time. Do you have an idea, or what would you do? What if would that person be able to serve the 5 years, the 10 years, and then be deported? Or do you believe that they would have to be, because again, as you said, it hasn't happened yet, but it could.
So I can only tell you what I would like to see happen. And again,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I would like to make sure that this jurisdiction, that Prince George's County, is able to hold anyone who commits a crime in this county accountable and responsible. And so that means to me that the person would have a fair trial in Prince George's County, and that if the person was convicted and sentenced, then that sentence would also be served in the state of Maryland.
Okay. Thank you.
Typically, there may be a detainer that's lodged. The federal government can do that. They can lodge a detainer, which means they're saying to the jurisdiction, hey, if and when the person completes the sentence, then we want to do exercise our rights to move forward with immigration proceedings, and that's fine. That's on them. But what I'm concerned about is the crime that was committed in Prince George's.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, because we do know that under the current politics of the time, that these things could very well happen. So I think that would be interesting for people to know. One of the other things.
Can I say this though?
Yeah, sure.
Do you mind if I say this? I think
No,
it's
absolutely.
important though. I want people to know that what concerns me is that so many of our members of our immigrant population who are not committing crimes are fearful of local law enforcement. And I don't want them to be fearful, because we need their cooperation as well. So when crimes occur in the county, right, whether you're a victim or a witness, we need you to trust local law enforcement so that we can hold the person accountable who committed that particular crime. And so it is important to me that we establish relationships with our immigrant communities so that they trust us. And so they, again, and that I want them to understand that we're not interested, frankly, in status. What we're interested in immigration status, what we're interested in is keeping Prince George's County safe. And that means keeping them safe as well.
So with that said, and as you may have heard, I think the Montgomery County Council has introduced legislation just in the past several days about, non-cooperation, not helping ICE and the like. But I'm just thinking, to your point, if I am an undocumented immigrant and I witness a crime and I am asked to come to trial, what guarantee do I have that after testifying and say, I saw him do it, okay, and then I leave the courthouse, what protection might I have once I leave the courthouse that ICE won't show up and snatch me? This is a real concern.
That's the problem. That's the problem. I can't get, just in the state's attorney's office in Prince George's County, can't guarantee protection. I don't know where ICE is. I don't know who they're looking at. I don't know. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm concerned. I'm concerned because, again, we need the cooperation of our immigrant community. They are a part of us. We want to protect them, and we need them to work with us. But I wish I could offer protection from the federal government, but I can't.
Yeah, it is a very complex situation, certainly, and one that your office is certainly not alone in looking at these issues. You mentioned when you first took over the state's attorney's office that you wanted to review cases that never got tried. What's the status of that review?
Cases that were never tried. I don't know. I don't remember that specifically. But what I can tell you is that seems like cases are moving through the system fairly. I won't say quickly. Sometimes, as we talked about earlier, investigations take time. Preparing cases for trial take time. Finding witnesses sometimes takes time, and fairly evaluating whether a case should go forward takes time. But I don't have any concern right now that cases are not moving through the system. There was a time during COVID where, of course, a few years ago, cases were really backed up. But I'm pretty confident right now that cases are moving through the system. Could we be faster in the judicial system as a whole? Yes, but I feel pretty good about the direction that we're heading in.
We are also in a time where prosecutors' offices are being called upon for more transparency, fairness, even community-centered justice. Is your office taking any specific steps to increase transparency, particularly when it comes to, for example, plea deals? And we kind of touched on this before, or decisions about, charging, so that, residents feel that there is fairness in the justice system.
Absolutely. I think the first step is just communicating regularly with the public. We've got a newsletter that is going out. In fact, hopefully within the next day or so, where we are highlighting significant prosecutions. We're highlighting statistics that the police department puts out on a daily basis. And then my goal is to make sure that my office gathers data, reliable data, and is able to not only analyze that data internally so we can tell how we're doing internally, but to put that information out to the public in a digestible format. So my goal is to be able to, hopefully by the first quarter of next year, release a dashboard from the state's attorney's office. Because as you alluded to, the state's attorney's office has a lot of discretion, and we make decisions on a daily basis that impact residents in our community. And so I think it's important that the residents in in our community understand how it is that we're using that discretion.
You spoke earlier about financial crimes, and you were speaking to a group recently. Could you drill down a little bit more? I just think that is so important, because those are the kinds of things that are happening, under the radar, that are really devastating to the community.
Absolutely. This has been really, I think education in this area is key. And we can prevent so many crimes from occurring if we can just warn our residents of the dangers. But we're seeing it. We're seeing it nationwide. It's not just Prince George's County, but of course I'm concerned about Prince George's County. The technology, whether it's our cell phones, our iPads, our computers, and then just coming in our mailboxes, right? Or over our landline phones. People are criminals are in the business of trying to steal money from others. And oftentimes they're posing as representatives from legitimate organizations that we deal with on a regular basis, whether it's Motor Vehicle Administration or Easy Pass or the utility company or Medicare. They're just, any organization that you can name. I think that there probably is a scam, right, associated with it. And what I want, in fact, this morning, I just said, I told the residents, the seniors there in that group, if you remember anything from me, just stop for a moment. When you receive some communication from some organization asking you for your money, right? Or asking you for your identifying information, just pause for a minute. Because lots of times, Harold, we're busy, we're moving around, and we don't take the necessary time just to think through what it is that the communication is saying to us and the dangers associated with it. And these criminals, what they're doing is they're wanting us to move fast and not think, and they are trying to invoke fear in us. And so typically a communication, or there's a certain type of scam that will have you believing that if you don't act immediately, then some harm is going to come to you. So if you don't act immediately, then you're going to lose your license. If you don't act immediately, then something's going to happen with your bank account, or your Medicare benefits. And so what I'm telling residents is just pause, right? I've heard this commercial on the radio. Banks don't ask. Government agencies are not going to text you on your phone and ask you to send them money. They're not. And so I want our residents just to pause, to stop. And then what I say is confirm. So what I mean by that is if somebody says that you've got a problem with your license, if somebody is saying to you, you've got a problem with your license, and you got to pay X amount of dollars to rectify that problem immediately, or actually if you've got a warrant outstanding, I understand that, there's a scam related to the office of the sheriff that's saying you got a warrant outstanding. And if you want to deal with this, then you got to pay X amount of money. Go confirm it. That means go to Google or wherever else and get the actual number, right, for Motor Vehicle Administration or the office of the sheriff. Go down to the office of the sheriff. They'll gladly talk to you. Go to the Motor Vehicle Administration and say, do I have a problem with my license, right? So go to the source to confirm. And so that you don't become a victim of of a scam. And
Yeah.
then what I say to folks is tell somebody, tell a friend. We have to protect each other in this regard because most of us have received fraudulent communications. And if we warn somebody was just saying yesterday at a forum I was in that they have received Medicare communications allegedly from Medicare. And the rest of the people were in the room were like, oh, I need to look out for that. And so I just want to spread the word. Let's really just stop, pause, and confirm.
Yeah, I did get a phone call from a sheriff's department last year. And it was pretty convincing because they wanted to come and arrest me. I said, come on. And then he became, he dropped the professional demeanor and began to curse me out, which was telling. So, but I think that is a really important thing, particularly for our seniors, because as you said, they have a tendency to scare people into giving money that they can't afford to give. I only have a few minutes left. I know we can't necessarily talk so much about your candidacy, but I did want to ask you. You've been in this job about 6 or 7 months now?
6 months.
Yeah. Why do you want to keep it?
It's important work. And it's work that I know that I can do. I've been a prosecutor for a good period of my career. I was a prosecutor for about 10 years before I came back into the office. And I think the public safety is central really to the health of this community. And I want to be a part of continuing to serve this community. So I love this job, and you're right, I do want to keep it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Prince George's County State's Attorney Tara Jackson. I appreciate your time. Happy holidays, safe holidays to you and your staff, and we will certainly be in touch.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Happy holidays to you.
Thank you so much. That is the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, December 10th. I'm Harold Fisher.